Hey friend, this is the Traveling Wellnesspreneur podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Temple. I travel full-time running my dream wellness biz from the tropics, and I want to share with you how you can create a lifestyle of freedom and purpose too. Stay tuned for inspiring and fun conversations that will empower you to take action towards your dream lifestyle of travel and freedom. Let's get into it. So one of the most common questions I get from those who are interested in taking their business on the road and traveling full time, and even those who already are, it's really around choosing your destination, which location you want to spend your time in. How do you choose that? How do you decide? So I've been asked, how have I decided over the last few years where I'm spending my time, which country, which city, what kind of accommodations, all of that stuff. So that's what I want to focus on sharing with you today. And I've got 3 key pillars that I'll be breaking down for you in just a moment to help you figure out where you should be traveling. But before we get there, I also want to share something really fun that I started offering recently. I have a free quiz for you, and it's called Where Should You Begin Your Location Independent Journey Wellnesspreneur. So check out the show notes for the link for the free quiz. It's really fun, it's quick, and even though I'm giving you a lot of hot tips in this episode, I want you to pop over there, take the quiz, and then join our Facebook group and let me know which result you ended up with, where you are meant to begin or even continue your location independent journey. So check out that quiz in the link in the show notes and stick around, because at the end of this episode, I'm going to be sharing a sweet little promo for you if you want to create your own quiz. I've had a few of you asking, how did you create this quiz? How can I do that as well? There's something really cool going on right now, so I'll share that with you in a little bit. And also, before we dive into my 3 key pillars, I want to remind you that if you are listening to this before November 27th, 2023, I do still have a promo going for my one-to-one coaching. So check out the link below to learn more about that, or again, send me a DM on Instagram. All right, so I've broken this down into, like I said, 3 key pillars, and this is what I have found really worked for me and my husband over the last few years when we are deciding where we want to be spending our time and working remotely. As I've mentioned to you before, I have been traveling full time for a few years now, and I have lived primarily in the tropics and in destinations like Mexico, Bali, Thailand, Vietnam. So I'll be talking about some of those places in more detail. But when we break it down to 3 key pillars, so the first pillar that I really want to emphasize here is getting a really clear idea of your budget. I know the money stuff can be complicated, especially if you're an entrepreneur, and quite frankly uncomfortable. But I'll tell you that the reason why my husband and I started traveling in the first place was because we were budgeting very strictly each month when we were living in LA. So this was back in 2020 and the 3 or 4 years before that. We had a pretty strict monthly budget, and because we had been pretty consistent with our planning around budgeting for quite some time, for really a few years, we were able to save enough money to get going on our travels so that when it came time for us to pull the trigger and actually start traveling, we were comfortable enough to feel like, okay, let's go travel while we're building our businesses, and at least if it doesn't work out, we're okay for the next year. We can come back and we can regroup. So budgeting ahead of time, and of course budgeting for your travels, is so important. This way you're going to have, of course, such a better idea of what kind of accommodations you are going to be booking and what you need out of those accommodations. So when I talk about accommodations, if you're booking like an Airbnb, a short-term rental, once you have a budget in mind, you're going to be able to decide whether you're going to be sharing those accommodations. Maybe you're traveling with a partner, maybe you're traveling solo and you're looking for a roommate, or you're like, absolutely not, and you want to have a place to yourself. Of course, a budget is going to help you decide what is the most realistic for you. And another thing to keep in mind, the food, when you are looking at your budget, do you want a good kitchen that you'll be able to cook a lot of your meals at while you are traveling? This is a great way to stay healthy and to just eat some of the foods that you're more familiar with, because if you're traveling in a foreign country, it can take a little bit of time, I think, physically and emotionally to adjust to the different types of food. So really getting comfortable with what you're able to spend on those things. Of course, flights and the actual travel is a big piece as well, and a big factor in where you are going to choose for your location. Since I've been traveling for a few years and I was budgeting before I was traveling, my budget now is much different from when I was working full-time for another company in Los Angeles. And if you want to learn more about the app that I've used, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I'll share it with you. But the app really helped me stay on track. And although my budget is different now than it was a few years ago, so is my lifestyle dramatically different. And that actually brings me to pillar number 2. One of the main things that I think about when I'm considering where I'm going to be spending time, whether it's a month or 6 months or a year, is the quality of life, the lifestyle that is attainable for me within my budget and within my regular schedule. So for me, what that looks like is I'm considering the walkability of each place that I go to. I love being able to walk around town. Right now, as I record this, I'm actually in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And one of the things I love about being here specifically is that it is super walkable. I have a Pilates studio, I have a yoga studio, I have the beach, I have a gym, I have tons of restaurants and coffee shops, all within about a 10-minute walk from where I am currently living. And that to me is a huge bonus. I know for you it could be different. Of course, you just want to highlight what are the most important things for you when it comes to lifestyle. Another piece that's important for me with lifestyle, as I mentioned with health, because I have the Pilates, the yoga studio, the gym, that's important to me. I want to always make sure that I'm staying active, especially these days where I am spending a lot of time sitting down at a computer. And I'm sure you can probably relate to that. As a business owner and a traveler over the last few years, my lifestyle has changed a lot, and there is a lot more sitting happening. And I can tell you that my body is not so happy about that. So that's a non-negotiable. I love to have something close by where I can go take a class or work out at the gym, and walkability, like I said, is great to just give me more motivation to move my body as much as possible. Some other factors that I include when I am considering the lifestyle are communities. Is there like a digital nomad or an expat community in the area that I'm going to, or that I'm thinking about going to, and what are they like? What is the local culture like? It's important to me to be able to be part of that local culture, not feel like I'm unwanted, but to be outside my comfort zone a little bit and be able to support in ways that I can and give back to the local cultures that I am so grateful to be immersed in. And I've got 2 more factors for the lifestyle pillar. One of them is just general health and self-care. So when I was living in places like Thailand and Bali, self-care often looked like a whole lot of massages. Like when I was in Thailand for a year, I made a point to receive a massage once a week because it was within my budget and it was so attainable with that lifestyle. So that was obviously a huge bonus. Now that I'm in Mexico, I am still trying to go for those massages. Within budget now, it's more like a couple of times a month. I know, poor me, right? But however you take care of yourself, of course, I'm doing many other things to take care of myself as well. That's more of a luxury item. But it's one of the great things about traveling to other places in the world where you can treat yourself and you don't feel like you're breaking the bank. The final lifestyle consideration that I want to point out is just thinking about the weather. I think that it's something that we probably all do anyway, but some people hate the heat, they hate the humidity, so they might not want to go to the tropics. They might want to be looking more into the mountains or somewhere that is not so hot. And for myself, I do enjoy the heat. I love the beach. I love the jungle. And those are some of the reasons why I've been spending so much time in the tropics. But one thing that you might want to also consider is, even if you are like me and you love the heat, the humidity, the sun, and so you think about going to the tropics, some of you have probably heard this story from me before, but I spent about a year with a home base in Phuket, Thailand, thinking it's Thailand, it's beautiful, it's tropical, right? And I feel like it was rainy monsoon season for at least 6 months out of that year. So don't think that if you're going to the tropics, you're going to bypass the wet stuff. Do a little bit of research before you sign up for something longer term if weather is important to you. And the final pillar I want you to think about is practical considerations. So I'm talking about family commitments, work commitments, medical, friends, holidays, anything that's more logistical. What I like to do is look at the calendar year ahead and start to get an idea of if there are any commitments that I have already made or that I might be making, for example, around the holidays. If I am going to try to get back to Canada, I start to look at what makes sense. Like, for example, my husband and I are heading back to Canada for the holidays for a couple of weeks. So that's one of the reasons also why we've stayed in Mexico and we're not flying all the way back to Asia and then coming back for a couple of weeks and then going again. Now, another example I can give you is after the holidays, I'm heading to Puerto Vallarta, the other side really of Mexico. And really this is built around practical considerations as well. My husband and I have a family vacay with his family in January. We have a friend's wedding in that area in March, and I've decided to host my Sayulita retreat in that same area in February. So through each of those 3 months, we have something going on in that general area, so it makes sense for us to book one place in Puerto Vallarta for that few months so that we're not jumping all over the place. And for me, this is how I've found this long-term travel to feel more sustainable when I'm not moving every couple of weeks or even every month. For me, it gets a bit tiresome while also running and growing a business. So we're trying to cut back on all of the movement, although this year has been a bit of an anomaly. Practical considerations could also include dentist and medical appointments. If you are planning those things within the year and you are able to look ahead and book those out, you can look at the bigger picture and consider where it makes sense for you to be in a month or 3 months or 6 months. And I'll mention as well, even though I do look at the calendar about a year in advance, sometimes even further, it doesn't mean I start booking things a year in advance. I just have some ideas in my mind, some notes in my notepad, and then I really do wait until usually just a couple of months out to start to book my travels and my accommodations, because things change and we all know that things can change very quickly. So that's something that has worked for me, having the idea of where I'm going to be and then being open to things changing and kind of rolling with the punches and seeing what makes the most sense when it's time to look at booking that travel and those accommodations. If you are needing some kind of appointment, like a health appointment, a doctor appointment, a dentist appointment, you can start to look at where in the world it might make sense for you to be going for those types of things, and if that is somewhere that you might want to spend a few months working remotely from. Literally, the reason why I am in Mexico right now is because I needed to book a dental appointment, and I had to get one of my crowns replaced. And I have a dentist here in Playa del Carmen who I love, and I had some work done a couple of years ago when I was here last, and I wanted to come back. My husband and I, we weren't really sure where we were going to be for this chunk of a few months. We hadn't really decided, and because I for sure wanted to come back to my dentist, we just figured, let's just hang out in Playa del Carmen for a few months and live there. We already are comfortable there, and it's an easy place for us to get back into routine. So that's really why I'm here in the first place. So those are the 3 pillars that I want you to consider when you are thinking about where you want to be traveling and working remotely. Number 1 was to start budgeting. If you're not already doing this, try to get a really clear idea of what you will be spending and saving up before you leave if you can. Number 2 is considering the lifestyle that you're looking for. Something that I like to do is join Facebook groups, like local Facebook groups for expats or for digital nomads in the specific areas that I'm considering spending some time in. And I join those groups. I get a feel for what kind of vibe it is in the community. I can ask questions. I go to the search tab and look at some of the conversations that people have already had. And I just pay attention to the conversations and see, does this seem like the right place for me to be spending some time? You can also get an idea of the cost of accommodations on Facebook Marketplace and, of course, websites like Airbnb ahead of time. And the 3rd pillar was practical considerations. So again, what I like to do is look at the next 6 months or year ahead, flag any potential plans, appointments, goals, events, family stuff, all of that kind of thing, and then work backwards from there. So my friend, planning is really helpful when it comes to traveling full time, especially if you want to do this in a sustainable, healthy, practical way. And if you're someone like me who likes to have a plan, I encourage you to take some time, do some research, look into different places, and of course, take my quiz, and you can access that in the show notes. I hope this was helpful for you. And speaking of the quiz, just before I go, I wanted to mention to you, if you are catching this episode in November, because I've had a bunch of you asking, how did I set this quiz up? And for those of you who do have your own business, if you're entrepreneurs, you should already be growing your email list. And this quiz is something that I'm using for lead generation to grow my list, to reach more people who are interested in what I'm doing and how I can help them. So I am using a website called Interact, and the amazing people at Interact are actually offering 35% off your first year of any annual plan, and it is good to use between Thursday, November 23rd and Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. So it's a short promo. If you are catching this within that span, check the show notes. I'm going to link to this promo, and you can purchase the plan at 35% off. So if you are really wanting to grow the heck out of your email list, you need to make a quiz of your own. It's super fun and it's super easy. And what I've heard is that it's the easiest way to capture emails and grow your list. These quizzes convert website visitors to subscribers at an average rate of 40%. So that's 4 new subscribers for every 10 visitors. I've been told personally from my coaches that this is the highest converting lead magnet out there, and I do believe that they are super effective. So definitely jump into that promo if you're catching this before November 28th, 2023. Check out the link in my show notes. And until next time, travel well. That's it for now. Thanks so much for joining me, and until next time, let's stay connected. Follow me on Instagram at Ali Temple Yoga. Join us in the Traveling Wellnesspreneurs Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. See you next time.